Community Health and Wellness Fair on Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Catch at Audubon Middle School in Leimert Park, 4120 11th Avenue. Join us for a day of health, healing, and community connection. There will be health screenings, immunizations, wellness information, a Catch Charter School recruitment fair, plus music and healthy snacks. And it's all free at the KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair, Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Audubon Middle School in Leimert Park, 4120 11th Avenue. Come out and bring the entire family. And if you have not yet checked out our KBLA Health and Wellness Hub, you should at KBLA1580.com. KBLA Talk 1580 thanks Catch Charter School, Prudential, Eastside, Cedar Sinai, and St. John's Community Health. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that a healthy community is a thriving community.
That's right, baby.
I sit alone in my four-cornered room staring at candles.
Who got, man?
We on the radio, dude? Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, peep this here. At night I can't sleep. I toss and turn. Candlesticks in the dark. Visions of bodies being burned. Four walls closing in, getting bigger. I'm paranoid, sleeping with my finger on the trigger. My mother's always stressing I ain't living right, but I ain't going out without a fight. See, every time my eyes close, I start sweating and blood starts coming out my nose. It's somebody watching the act, but I don't know who it is, so I'm watching my back. I can see him when I'm deep in the covers. When I awake, I hear a car burning rubber. He owns a black hat like I own, a black suit and a cane like my own. Some might say take a chill beat, but I can't, G, cause there's somebody trying to kill me. I'm popping in the clip when the wind blows. Every 20 seconds got me peeping out my window. Investigating the joint for traps. Checking my telephone for taps.
This is the Black Pack. I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire, here on KBLA Talk 1580. We are turning our attention this hour to Election Day that's coming up this Tuesday, November 4th. But it's Halloween. And I was saying to Andy in the last hour that this is actually my favorite holiday, and Halloween is falling on a weekend, as the Ghetto Boys predicted. not I feel like it was not long ago, but actually it was a really long time ago. This song is old. But I'm planning to enjoy Halloween and handing out candy to the children when I get home. However, we also need to talk about the election that's coming up this Tuesday. So joining us now is Rebecca Carruthers, President and CEO of the Fair Election Center. Welcome back, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, and happy Halloween. Here on the East Coast, I've been giving out candy the last 2 hours.
Well, good. I'm glad you have been, because, there's sometimes when it's like, I got this bowl of candy, and no kids. There's no one knocking on the door. It's warm here. It's warm here in L.A. Although I know you are. You in Brooklyn? Where are you?
No, so I'm in D.C.
Oh, you're in D.C. So okay.
It's warmer than normal, but it's still East Coast and it's late October, so it's a little windy tonight, but the kids are out.
Yes. Well, I've got these images of the rain in Brooklyn seared in my mind, or in New York City, like seared in my mind. It's like, ooh, that's not going to be a good Halloween for folks. It's warm here, so no. I'm expecting many, many kids. So I bought 2 big bags of candy just so that I have enough and do not run out and have people talking about next year, that's that lady who runs out of candy. So we have elections coming up. I think they won't be scary, but they are serious nonetheless. Maybe. So it's, oftentimes we see elections in, what is called the odd year, which is there's really no odd or off year, but we call it these things anyway. And what folks should know is that we've talked about some of the big elections. We know we have this election coming here, the ballot initiative here in California. We know there's a governor's race in Virginia. We know there's a governor's race in New Jersey. But there really are races up and down the ballot happening in states across the country. As we might have expected earlier this week, right, we got reports that the Trump administration would be sending poll monitors to several counties here in Southern California and also to New Jersey. And so I think my question to you is, maybe obvious, but we should talk about it, is what is this, right? Is this an effort to protect the security of our elections, to protect the integrity of our elections? What is this? And we'll get into we don't have to get into it right now, but we're going to get into it about like who runs elections, right? And so what is this? Why are they sending monitors to monitor a state election?
So here's the thing. It's not unusual for both Democratic and Republican administrations to send out monitors, but what makes it different is that you normally don't see the announcement here for off-year elections. Mm-hmm. The second thing is normally DOJ cites specific violations, what exactly they're monitoring. So I'm thinking back in 2013 when the Obama administration sent some monitors into Mississippi, mm-hmm. specifically the Brookhaven mayoral race. It was because in Brookhaven, Mississippi, that it was a Section 5 covered jurisdiction under the Voting Rights Act. Yeah. And so there were concerns with whether or not the elections were going to be carried out the way in which they were supposed to be carried out. But here, we're also seeing where the Trump administration is sending these monitors in Southern California, parts of the Central Valley, and then in immigrant-heavy areas of New Jersey. Mm-hmm. It should raise eyebrows, especially because it's not just DOJ going in. It's also Department of Homeland Security, which houses ICE.
Right. So the question would be, why do we need ICE agents at our polling places? And I think
if you want to scare people from voting, then maybe that's something that you would do.
Then that's something that you would do. I do think. Well, I want to. When we come forward, I want to get into this because I think there's some nuance and there's not nuance, and some of it's just like beating people over the top of the head with I think again this idea of fear and intimidation, which is maybe the total point of this. But Rebecca is gonna stay with us and get into this about what might be happening here in Southern California, but also obviously in other parts of the country as well. You're listening to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
California, this is your moment. The special election is November 4th, and your vote helps decide your future, your community, and your state. Drop your ballot at a secure drop box. Visit an early vote center or mail it. Your participation powers democracy. Every ballot makes a difference. Tell a friend to do the same. Sign up at where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov to track your ballot. Make your voice count. Don't delay. Vote today. A message from the California Secretary of State.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 80% water, right? It doesn't clean as well.
80% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Oh, let me make an announcement.
Attention shoppers, if you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Stop paying for watered-down detergents. Pay for clean. If it's gotta be clean, it's gotta be Tide Pods. Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent.
Preparation, purpose, and passion fuel greatness. Join Brandon Copeland as he shares his journey from a professional football player to real estate investor, professor, and mentor committed in protecting one's wealth on and off the field. See how he turned his experiences and lessons learned into legacy. Discover life-changing plays, moves that build the future, and the importance of financial literacy to protect what matters. Catch the two-part series at CashesLife.com/double impact. Brought to you by Nationwide.
On Thursday evening, November 6th, you're invited to the next KBLA Talk 1580 Altadena Town Hall meeting. This time, we're convening at Victory Bible Church, 1497 North Hill Avenue in Pasadena. The town hall will once again be broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580 from 4 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, November 6th. But you're invited to join us in person for this urgent and necessary community conversation. The theme for this Altadena Eaton Canyon Fire Town Hall is understanding regarding the Wildfire Recovery Compensation Fund. The primary focus of this gathering is to inform residents about Southern California Edison's newly launched Wildfire Recovery Compensation Program and provide clarity on eligibility and the claims process. There are plenty of questions to be asked, and only KBLA Talk 1580 has the right moderators to ask the tough questions, the right stakeholders and community activists to share their insights, and we have confirmed the participation of corporate executives from Southern California Edison to answer our queries. So be sure to join us at Victory Bible Church in Pasadena, 1497 North Hill Avenue on Thursday, November 6th. The event is free and open to the public, but registration is required at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Light refreshments will be served immediately following the live town hall. This KBLA Talk 1580 Altadena Rising Town Hall is brought to you by the Black Freedom Fund.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are continuing our conversation with Rebecca Carruthers, President and CEO of the Fair Election Center. Okay, so we were talking about the Trump administration sending election monitors into counties in states, California being one, New Jersey being the other. You noted, which is important, that it is not just DOJ staff that will be deployed here, or monitors that will be deployed here. It's also Homeland Security. And so I think that there's a question, and you talked about this a little bit. I'm hoping that you'll say a little bit more. It isn't as if we can talk about what's normal and what's not normal, right? But it isn't as if there hasn't always been a role, and you talked about the Obama administration, but the role of the federal government sort of overseeing and elections and looking out for irregularities, right, in state elections. I guess the question is, when in these off-year elections, I think you said that's like we don't typically see that. Are there other examples, right, that might people might remember, right, of the federal government sending in election monitors, election monitors, in what seemed like an election that just didn't warrant that?
So there's a few things here, and I'm thinking of how I can succinctly answer this. Within some of these departments, including DHS, of folks being sent out, it includes Trump-appointed officials who have been previous election deniers and conspiracy theorists around elections. Mm-hmm. So we need to say that part out loud. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The other thing that we need to talk about is this push from this administration and the people in this administration who for years have said falsely that undocumented people are voting in our elections. Mm-hmm. And the pushback that I have for that, are you really telling me someone traveling thousands of miles to come into this country to work under the table, send money back home, try to build a good life? You're telling me they're going to go to the south side of Chicago? They're going to go to the Central Valley in California, and they're going to go pretend to be somebody to go vote?
Right.
No, right. That defies common sense.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to point out for your listeners, another bit of texture, is the Department of Justice laid off a lot of the attorneys in the Civil Rights Division. Mm-hmm. And then the voting rights, specifically the voting rights section. Yeah. The courts in this administration is now trying to say that private plaintiffs can't bring cases to challenge voter issues around voting and accessing the ballot. I believe that was, I think it was the Eighth Circuit. Mm-hmm. If I'm remembering correctly, I think it's the Eighth Circuit that said private plaintiffs can't like the NAACP, they can't on behalf of someone else bring a claim. Only the Department of Justice. So understanding that there aren't a lot of voting rights attorneys left over there. Right. I think it's less than 5 folks. So I want to know, what is the reason why the administration is going into these areas in this non-federal year election?
Right.
And so that's the question we should be asking, because there is a deviation from normally how this happens, where we understand up front, this is the particular issue, this is the particular reason why we're monitoring this specific election.
Right. And so part of it is, and I it is, and I appreciate you bringing up the fact that people who have oversight are people who are actually election deniers, and the reasons, or perhaps the part of the rationale is actually to advance these conspiracy theories, right? I actually I had to take my children, my adult children, just to be clear, to a voting center the other day to vote. So they were both ready to go down. I drove them down to the election. Now this voting center is in the Crenshaw Mall, and I thought, are there about to be federal monitors in a voting center on the corner of, Crenshaw and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevards? Like, I don't think, less than a mile from Obama Boulevard? Like, I don't think so. I'll need people rolling down
mall.
Crenshaw like that. Yeah, right. And indeed, there were not. But it is this, but I had this, and this is, again, you get to the, attempt at, intimidation. And I was literally, I kid you not, the reason why I went is because I was like, I don't know what's gonna be at this voting center, and so I'm gonna go down there, right? But it is about putting that sort of sense of uncertainty, right, in the minds of America's voters about whether or not they should go, right? Yeah. Putting people, and we in last year's election, and even in 2020, we saw the kind of intimidation, right? At that point, these folks weren't necessarily working for the federal government, but they were Proud Boys and Patriot Front, and at precincts and throughout the South, right? Standing outside of drop boxes in places, right? And so this is now this sort of intimidation factor, particularly when you have the Department of Homeland Security coming in, this intimidation factor is being orchestrated by our own government.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is also old school intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
So before I came to Fair Election Center, which is a nonpartisan organization, I worked in campaigns. I've done political work in every region of this country for about 20 years. And this is old school. I could tell you the number of times where there was a black candidate on the ballot, and all of a sudden in areas where there is high, that are more like black precincts, there's a high index of black voters assigned to that precinct. All of a sudden you would see law enforcement
right.
That was circling around those neighborhoods. That was a chilling effect, not because black folks are predisposed to commit crimes more, but the negative interactions that people have had with these different agencies. So if you have naturalized citizens who are lawfully in this country, are lawfully able to register to vote, and you see the presence of ICE at your voting precinct, what do you think is going to happen?
Right.
Especially when you see allegations of, in this current roundup that's happening in this country right now, you're seeing allegations of people who are legally here that are also being detained.
Right.
So how does this administration expect people to react to this? Right. And I think that's the point.
Yeah. Well, I think that's I think that is definitely the point. And we know that we've seen, even in our most recent elections, we've seen this effort to, challenge people's ballots, right? Right in the precinct, right? And I think that that's also, when we think about kind of a dry run, right, for what we might anticipate. Yeah, exactly. But when we think about dry run for next year, right? This sort of overwhelming presence. I mean, we can also think, again, back to 2020 when we think about, the counting of the ballots being challenged in places like Detroit and Philadelphia and Milwaukee, right? I think that this is not, we can attribute this stuff to Trump 2.0, but we actually saw them implementing some of this in Trump 1.0 as well.
Yeah, I wonder what those three cities have in common that you just named.
Yeah, I wonder.
But
But that's
so here's the thing. On top of that, you're seeing like this push for redistricting, and it's
right.
heavily
Yes.
partisan. Even though in 2019 the Supreme Court had the ability to stop this before it happened, the Supreme Court decided not to act in a way that would preserve the type of democracy that we're trying to build. And so now we have everything that's going on now. We have the White House sending people to Texas, to Missouri, to Indiana. We're seeing that there are different there's an architect that's going through to try to net the White House additional seats for the midterms, not because because individual voters are saying that that's their preference for the makeup of the House, but because the districts are being heavily skewed.
Right.
But here's the thing that I need your listeners to know. I need people to show up and show out and vote for the democracy that they want. I need people to show up in record numbers, because when you see that there are thumbs on the scale, and what I mean by that, I'm not saying that we can't have free and fair elections, but when you see that rules are being changed in the middle of the decade, when redistricting is not supposed to happen in the middle of the decade, unless there is an error in how the district maps were created, or if there was a violation of law. Instead, we're seeing pure partisan happenings that's going on. And I know in California, with a lot of your listeners, with Proposition 50 being on the ballot on Tuesday, here's the thing. We need all sides to say, hey, this is not the way to move forward. But at the point that we don't have those rules in place, then we're seeing the political parties do what they feel like they need to do. And we hear different arguments and different viewpoints. But the point in all of this, at the end of the day, there has to be a pullback if we actually want to preserve and build the democracy that we want. But in order for that to happen, I need your listeners to double check their voter registration. There are some states where people are being actively kicked off the rolls. Monthly, put it on your calendar to double check your voter registration. And then those around you in your sphere of influence, make sure that they're double checking their voter registration. And when it's time to vote, when it's election season, make a plan to vote. Try to vote as soon as possible. If your state allows vote by mail, please, by all means, vote by mail, and then reach out to your local elections administrator where you can track and make sure that they received your ballot and indeed it was counted.
Yeah, I think it's we are seeing across the country in some places in Georgia comes to mind in particular, turnout being quite high. Right. So the number of folks who had voted, the number of ballots that are in being higher than they were at this point in the last election. We're also seeing the number of Black folks participating in this year's election in some places being higher than it was last year. So hopefully at this point last year. So hopefully that is an indication that people are doing exactly what you said, which is, understand your vote to be, we always say your vote is your voice, but in this case, it's understand that your vote is an opportunity for you to say no. Right. This is not what I want happening in my name. I always think about it as, people who say, well, I don't go to protests. I don't go to marches, that your vote in some ways is actually a protest against what is happening in this country. And what you're seeing is not what you like, is not what you want, then show up in this year's election and let folks know that. So I a couple of other questions, because I think that we think about, and I'll go back to the terminology of off-year election. We think about these
non-federal year election,
right? Yes. Non-federal year election, as not being as important. And I think this is why the numbers of what we're seeing right now in terms of folks participating is so important, because these are the elections that people kind of make the decision like, I don't know, it's not the most important one. And, I'll show up next year for the midterms, right? Or I only vote in presidential elections. And I think that this year, I was going to say in particular, but not necessarily in particular, I think that this year is a good example of why all of these elections matter, right? They all add up and they all have consequences, right? And so when we think about, whether it's the proposition here in California, or we think about mayoral races that are happening across the country.
For utilities.
Right, yes.
For utilities. In Georgia, utilities are skyrocketing, and it depends on your zip code. And the Public Service Commission that's on the ballot in Georgia this year, they determine what those rates look like. If you live in an area where there's data centers coming in, that means your water bill is going up. That means your electric bill is going up, and you all better have a say. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to live. There are people now who don't just have one job, not just two jobs, but 3 and 4 jobs just to pay bills, not for extras, but just for necessities. And all of these things are on the ballot this year.
That's right. We have school board races across the country. There's just I think people sometimes get pay close attention to the big races that they talk about on CNN or whatever, right? And lose sight of the fact that there's lots of stuff happening all over the country, and people can overlook that even when those things are happening in your own state, right? Or even in your own city, because the news media is not necessarily bringing us all the important news that we need, even when it's in our own states. So I appreciate that, both saying that it's important for folks to participate. You also said check your registration. And so I want to just ask you to double down on that, because you are not necessarily saying, and just for this one election, right? Make sure that you're checking and double checking, right? Like we have been dealing with this issue of people getting purged off the election rolls for some time now, and not knowing, and then showing up to vote and realizing that they weren't there. So talk a little bit more about the importance of, this is just with us for a while, right? Talk to us about the importance of folks paying attention. Oh, Andy is actually flagging me that we have gone over. I'm so into this conversation with you that we are over time, and I'm still asking you questions. Okay, we're going to leave it there. But I'm going to have you back, of course, to talk about.
Have you back anytime.
To follow up on this election and to talk about more.
And when I'm in LA next, I'll love to come in the studio.
Okay, great. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, and I will make up for having to stop you. But we'll have you back to sort of follow up, because these are really critical issues. So I want to thank Rebecca Carruthers, President and CEO of the Fair Election Center. When we come back, we're going to talk about Prop 50. Stay with us.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The government shutdown has entered its 31st day with no end in sight. President Trump continues to blame Democrats.
The Democrats just don't know what they're doing.
The Senate is adjourned until Monday, and millions of low-income Americans face losing SNAP benefits for November. A federal judge has given the Trump administration until Monday to decide whether to authorize reduced payments. Federal prosecutors in Los Angeles are investigating claims that the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation defrauded donors. The group, separate from the broader Black Lives Matter movement, faced criticism for buying a $6 million home in 2022, but says it's not under investigation and has been fully transparent. And Alaska's first black female judge, Pamela Scott Washington, is retiring this week. Appointed in 2010, she served 15 years on the bench, leading the Mental Health Court and co-chairing the state's Fairness, Diversity, and Equality Commission. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
problems in Costa Mesa, 405 southbound just before Fairview. That's right near South Coast Plaza. It's an accident taking up the fast track lanes. You're backed up to Euclid. And up ahead through Orange County, more delays on the South 405 from Culver Drive down to the 5, the El Toro Y. On to Chino, E60 before the 71. It's a two-vehicle collision and it's blocking the carpool lane. E60, the Pomona Freeway, continuous delays from the East LA interchange down to Archibald.
Hard rock style is coming to the Central Valley, just 15 miles south of Bakersfield off Route 99. You'll find world-class gaming and entertainment. Less drive time equals more playtime. The all-new Hard Rock Casino Tejon, opening November 13th.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers are at Memphis tonight. A lot of eyes will be on Lakers guard Austin Reeves to see if he can maintain his exceptional play in the first 2 weeks of the NBA season. With LeBron and Luka out with injuries, Reeves has elevated his performance. He ranks third in the NBA in scoring and assists. Reeves is averaging 34.2 points and 10 assists. The Clippers are at home tonight against New Orleans. One of the components of Dodgers owner Mark Walter paying $10 billion to be the new owner of the Lakers is that Jeannie Buss will keep 15% of the franchise. Buss, the daughter of former Lakers owner Jerry Buss, will continue representing the franchise at NBA Board of Governors meetings. USC is at Nebraska Saturday. The 5-2 Trojans need a win to stay in contention for the 12-team college football playoffs. UCLA has a bye. They're at home next Saturday against Nebraska. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
You ready? You're invited to the KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair on Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Catch at Audubon Middle School in Lamert Park, 4120 11th Avenue. Join us for a day of health, healing, and community connection. There will be health screenings, immunizations, wellness information, a Catch Charter School recruitment fair, plus music and healthy snacks. And it's all free at the KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair, Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Audubon Middle School in Lamert Park, 4120 11th Avenue. Come out and bring the entire family. And if you have not yet checked out our KBLA Health and Wellness Hub, you should at KBLA1580.com. KBLA Talk 1580 thanks Catch Charter School, Prudential, Eastside, Cedar Sinai, and St. John's Community Health. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that a healthy community is a thriving community.
That's right, baby.
First, they tried to erase our history.
Pentagon removed training material about the Tuskegee Airmen. Arlington National Cemetery removing histories that highlighted black veterans from its website.
Then they tried to erase our jobs.
Black Americans will disproportionately bear the brunt.
Now they think they can erase our votes.
Steal 5 congressional seats, decimating black and brown representation.
Enough is enough. I matter, my rights matter, and our future matters. That's why I'm voting yes on Prop 50. Prop 50 lets us temporarily redraw California congressional maps to counter the election rigging Trump is trying to pull off in Texas and other states. Californians across the state are stepping up and using the power of their vote to stop the madness. So vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th, because we can't let them erase our history or our future. This ad is paid for by the NAACP and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
eBay has reinvented vehicle buying. From click to curb, everything's covered. Ever try to buy a car online and end up in a parking lot with a stranger and some blind trust? That era is over. Now with Secure Purchase, eBay isn't just where you find your car. It's where you buy it, start to finish. Title, financing, registration, delivery, it's all built in. This is the modern way to buy your next ride on eBay. eBay. Things people love. Secure Purchase is powered by Caramel Dealer Services, LLC, an eBay subsidiary.
It all comes down to this, folks.
Yep, the entire season is on the line. But my throat has officially thrown in the towel.
Sounds like you need Vicks VapoCool drops. They're max strength and vaporize sore throat pain.
Whoa! These VapoCool drops hit fast.
Speaking of fast, did you just see that play?
Yeah, he vaporized that ball.
That pun should have come with a penalty.
Vaporize sore throat pain with Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in the National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
You're inside the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
We have been talking about the November 4th election day that is coming up this Tuesday, the last day to vote. Not the first day, right? The last day to vote, not only in terms of what is happening around the country, what's happening here in California with Prop 50, but also the potential for federal monitors to be at our voting centers here in counties in California. But I'm really pleased right now to be joined by President Rick Callender, the president of the NAACP California Hawaii State Conference. Welcome, President Callender, to the show.
Ms. Shropshire, thank you for having me. It's good to be with you this evening.
No, I appreciate you taking time. I know that you all at the NAACP are doing a lot up and down the state with folks mobilizing the communities where they are active, making sure that both your members, right, and folks in the communities are getting their votes in before the 4th. But for those folks who might be waiting, right, making sure that they get their votes in by Tuesday. I want to ask you to just do a little bit of a reminder, right, for some of our listeners who may not have voted yet, who are still trying to understand what Prop 50 is and what the stakes are. Talk to us a little bit about this ballot initiative and why it matters for not just for California, but for the country.
Well, absolutely. So the NAACP, we have a strong position not only from the California State Conference, but also from the National NAACP for yes on Prop 50. If you look at what's really going on, and I know folks are out there talking about partisan gerrymandering, et cetera, but if you pull back the onion just a little bit, you understand that yes on Proposition 50 really preserves democracy. If you look at what's going on in Texas, and I tell folks that this is a direct fight with Texas, all Texas has done is intentionally target black legislators, Representative Al Green, Representative Jasmine Crockett. They have gotten rid of their districts. They've made Al Green's district, which was a majority black district, into basically 1/5. So basically 1 in 5 voters are now black in that district. So they wiped them out. If you look at what's going on in Missouri, they targeted Emmanuel Cleaver's the 2nd seat. All they're doing is they're wiping out black and brown representatives, but black folks are first. It's really just wiping us out. This is our way to fight back. We cannot just sit around. We cannot just wait and say, oh, this is just politics. This isn't politics. They're trying to push us back into Jim Crow. So all this does is this allows for at least a temporary resetting of the maps. It will give California 5 districts so that we can protect black and brown representation in Congress. This is what we're looking for.
Right. And that's, I think the point that you're raising is an important one because, there are folks who say, well, isn't this just gerrymandering, right? We're supposed to be against gerrymandering. The racial gerrymandering, which is what you just described, right? The diluting, right, and weakening of black voting power, the elimination of black representation, because yes, we're seeing that in Texas, we're seeing that in Missouri, we will see that in Indiana. North Carolina has just said, their legislature has just said that they will also do mid-decade redistricting. We know that in North Carolina in particular, they stripped the power away from the governor. Now, North Carolina has a Democratic governor, right? So it could be that the legislature, the Republican legislature passes these maps, and in any normal circumstances, the governor might veto it. But they can't do that because they took that power away from the governor. So we see, legislatures, Republican legislatures across the country moving to do this, using whatever power they have, but in effect reducing or weakening Black voting power and eliminating, right, Black political representation. And I appreciate you bringing that point up in particular because it's, it can be confusing, I think. And we know that folks want to show up to the ballot and vote for things that they feel confident about voting on.
No, absolutely. And I'm happy that you mentioned some of the states. You mentioned North Carolina, Texas, Florida, Ohio, Missouri, Indiana, Alabama. These are places where they're attacking us. They're attacking Black and brown voting power. And what I try to point out often is what people are talking about is that the South will rise again, and this is what they're trying to do. This is really about trying to bring the South back, trying to bring back Jim Crow. If you look at the policies that are going on, if you look at what's happening with not only the National Guard being sent into our communities, I'm happy that you talked about trying to get the ballots in before November 4th. The one thing I never thought I was going to have to do is mobilize a bunch of NAACP volunteers for poll monitoring to make sure that the federal monitors aren't going to be there for voter intimidation or to keep folks out. Imagine, everybody's seen this on TV. Imagine what happens if ICE shows up and is standing 50 feet away from the polls. Are folks going to want to go into those polls? So right now we're making sure we're mobilizing all 57 of our units in California to make sure that we have folks doing poll monitoring. So if we see something and we need to take some kind of legal redress or kind of legal, some kind of legal action, we can do so. This is serious.
Yeah.
This is like something that folks have never seen before. Often people say, what would you do if you were in the middle of the civil rights movement, talking about what they would do in the 60s? You are in the middle of the civil rights movement. And part of the civil rights movement is making sure that California stands up to the South, that California stands up to Texas, and we vote yes on 50 because we cannot afford to lose Black representation in Congress or anywhere else.
So, President Callender, when we come forward, I want to actually, or maybe I have time to do it now. I want to ask you to talk a little bit more about the poll monitoring that you just raised, because it's so important, and I'm glad that you all are doing it. Because just because there are poll monitors on the other side doesn't mean that we can't also have poll monitors to make sure that our people's vote is protected. We have a role to play in making sure that people feel safe when they're going to vote. I was talking earlier about how I went with my 20-somethings kids down to vote precisely at a voting center, precisely because I wasn't sure whether there would be monitors or not, right? And so that that sort of uncertainty, right, is gonna could cause people to think twice, right? Do I really want to be bothered with all of this? And particularly when you're talking about the Department of Homeland Security being monitors, that is really just straight up and up intimidation.
Absolutely. That's nothing more than voter intimidation. What I pointed out when I was on with General Counsel just yesterday and the day before, when the Trump administration sent out basically the press release saying that they were going to be monitoring most of the places that they've described are in the Southern California area, so Riverside, San Bernardino, Kern County, basically places where you have a lot of Black and brown voters. And so in terms of what we'll be doing is we're going to make sure that if we see things that we have this kind of voter intimidation, trying to keep people from going to the polls or trying to, who knows what they're going to do.
Right.
Because
challenge their ballots, I'd imagine, too.
Exactly. We're in a new territory. And we talk about challenging ballots. I just point to what happened in Georgia when they took off 40,000 voters off the rolls.
Yeah.
The majority of those voters were African-American, senior African-Americans, and they just removed them from the rolls. And people wonder what happened to those votes. when we came to the last presidential election. That's what they're trying to do in California. And that's why basically 3 Tuesdays ago, the California-Hawaii State Conference, we sued the Trump administration to keep them from basically being able to continue to try to dig into our voter files, trying to find out information that has nothing to do with voting. We know what they're trying to do. This voting monitoring or whatever they're calling it is nothing more than voter intimidation, keep black and brown folks from going to the polls or keep them scared from going to the polls. And I'll point out exactly what happened in Arizona during the last race, where you had these armed militias. These people were not, they were not part of the government. They had armed militias, people dressed up, having their face covered, standing in front of these the voter drop-off boxes. And what was that intended to do? That was purely intended to keep people from casting their vote. So if we see this is what we're going to be monitoring. No, we're not going to confront them.
Right.
We're going to go straight into court, and we'll try to get an injunction. We will do whatever it takes to make sure that we protect black and brown votes.
When we come forward, we'll continue this conversation with Rick Callender, president of the NAACP California-Hawaii State Conference. Stay with us. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
First, they tried to erase our history.
Pentagon removed training material about the Tuskegee Airmen. Arlington National Cemetery removing histories that highlighted black veterans from its website.
Then they tried to erase our jobs.
Black Americans will disproportionately bear the brunt.
Now they think they can erase our votes.
Steal 5 congressional seats, decimating black and brown representation.
Enough is enough. I matter, my rights matter, and our future matters. That's why I'm voting yes on Prop 50. Prop 50 lets us temporarily redraw California congressional maps to counter the election rigging Trump is trying to pull off in Texas and other states. Californians across the state are stepping up and using the power of their vote to stop the madness. So vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th, because we can't let them erase our history or our future. This ad is paid for by the NAACP and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
California, this is your moment. The special election is November 4th, and your vote helps decide your future, your community, and your state. Drop your ballot at a secure drop box. Visit an early vote center or mail it. Your participation powers democracy. Every ballot makes a difference. Tell a friend to do the same. Sign up at where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov to track your ballot. Make your voice count. Don't delay. Vote today. A message from the California Secretary of State.
Our communities have been through too much to let our voices be erased now. Prop 50 is how we push back against the rigged maps, the rising costs, and the attacks on our health care and our rights. I'm Senator Lola Smallwood-Cuevas. Join me in voting yes on Prop 50, because we deserve to choose who speaks for us. Ad paid for by California for All of Us, supporting Prop 50. McKenna Ballot Measure Committee. Ad Committee's top funder. Faith votes yes on 50. Sponsored by LA Voice Action and Progressive Era Issues Committee, supporting yes on 50.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in a National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are wrapping up our election day coverage, or pre-election day, because today is not that, or it could be if you wouldn't drop your ballot off, with President Rick Callender of the NAACP California Hawaii State Conference. I want to talk to you a little bit about your members and what you all are hearing from your members, both about their perspective on Tuesday's election, but also their motivation, not just to vote, but to engage others. I was on a call, I think a week or two ago, with some of your folks, and it seemed to me that the folks who were on that call were trying to find any and everything that they could do, right? Looking for as much information as they could get to get it out to local communities. And I assume that that's been sort of the sentiment of the NAACP members and staff here in California.
No, absolutely. I can tell you the NAACP is highly motivated. All of our branches are highly motivated. We still have town halls that are going to be occurring tomorrow, not only in Los Angeles area, the Long Beach area, also the San Diego area, but our members are doing everything that they can. From the state office, we did put out 2 mailers that went to every single identified African-American voter, as well all NAACP members that are part of the state. So it went out to about 295,000 individuals.
Yes, thank you. I got mine. I got mine.
You did get yours.
I did.
so you know the mail did go out. The mail did go out. We also went on a text messaging campaign. Just last night alone, we put out 135,000 text messages.
I got my text messages too, yes.
And I can tell you, that was done by volunteers. People don't understand that, the NAACP is driven by volunteers that really care about democracy, that care about civil rights, that care about social justice. And so those 135,000 texts that went out yesterday was by volunteers. However, on the front side of that, we've actually put out a little over 300,000 texts to individuals. But we have folks that are knocking on doors. We're trying to get the largest black turnout, the largest brown turnout, the largest turnout from people that care about democracy. And so they understand that, as goes California, so goes the nation. So don't poke the bear or the bear will bite you back. And so that's where we are right now. I can tell you all of the members, all of the individuals are highly motivated to make sure that, we're not going to sleep till Wednesday morning.
Right.
We'll keep pushing this through to 8 p.m. Tuesday night. And I'm hoping that all black and brown voters, that all people of good conscience to get their votes in before these monitors show up at the polls and do whatever they're trying to do. So I think it makes good sense for everyone to get stuff in. We've been coordinating also through our branches with the Divine Nine, churches, mosques, anything and everything that we can do. But I can tell you there's been a lot of activity. I haven't seen as much motivation on any one election issue ever than what I'm seeing right now.
Wow. I think that's important. I think that because your members are out and they're talking to folks, they're not just talking to each other, right? They're out talking to members of the community about why this election is important. I would ask you if, for people who might still be on the fence, right? But on the fence about the proposition, but also about whether or not, voting matters in this moment. What would you say to them, right? About why they should, turn in their ballots before Tuesday, if possible, or go to an early voting center and vote in person, preferably before Tuesday. What will you say to folks who are still a little bit on the fence?
Often people are saying, they see what's going on in government, and people say they don't know what to do. How can I participate? How can I volunteer? How can I fight back? Well, Proposition 50 is your chance to fight back. Proposition 50, this simple vote is your opportunity to say, I did my part to defend democracy. And this is just the first step. We've got to continue to fight. We got to continue to fight in courts as the NAACP is known to do and will do. But for these individuals, this is their chance to play an important role in shaping how does black representation look like in not only California, but in the nation. Right. This is not about just California. This is not about redistricting in California. This is about protecting democracy in the nation. Do not sit on the sidelines now, because if we don't do this now, imagine what tomorrow will look like. Folks are thinking what's going on in the administration, you see what's going on. You see the attacks on black and brown immigrants. You see the attacks on major communities. Chicago's last week. LA was the week prior to that. They're coming after us. They're coming after us, and this gives us the chance to stand up and to fight back.
Yeah, I think that we were talking earlier in the show about, that there are folks who want to do something about what's happening in the country, right? May not know how. They might see the No Kings marches and say, well, that's not me, right? I don't want to go out to a big march. They may see what's happening with, the government shutdown right now, right? The potential for, millions of people to go hungry, right? Although hopefully that the federal judge's ruling has put an end to that potential fright for people, or that threat to people. But there is a way that for our community, voting has always been an act of resistance, right? When people talk about, I'm gonna show up and be a part of the resistance. Voting has always been an act of resistance for our community. The NAACP for 100 years, right, has been a part of helping people to find their courage and find their power and use the right to vote as an act of resistance against an authoritarian government, right? Like, this is not our first authoritarian government, to be clear. And so I think that what you're saying, I think is so important, because it is both people using their voice, right, using their power to say, I do not consent. I do not consent to what is happening in this country, because it is so much more than just what's happening here in California.
Absolutely, and I think you've pointed it out perfectly. This is their chance to do something. I think you can show up at the No Kings marches, and I encourage people to do that. But when those marches end, what do you do? What have you done to make change? This makes actual change. This is one of the only ways that we have to fight back in this moment, and we have to fight back before November 4th. Otherwise, we're just going to be on our heels, and we're just going to continue to battle, and we're going to continue to hope that the courts rule in our favor. And I don't necessarily feel good about some of the cases we have going to the Supreme Court, and we don't know what they're going to do. Right. But what we're seeing is the rollback of rights. What we're seeing is the rollback of gains that we've made. We see attacks on everything that we fought for up until this point. And like I said, this is an attempt to kick us back into Jim Crow. And yes, in Proposition 50 is basically our way to push back and say, we're not going backwards. We're not going into Jim Crow. And no, we're not going to stand. We're not going to stand there and not fight. We know what you're doing. We're fighting back. Any
information that you can give us here in the last 30 seconds or so about the town halls that you mentioned yesterday? How can people find if a town hall that might be near them? You said one here in LA, one in Long Beach. Where can people go for information?
What I'd say is go to those local websites for the San Diego. It's the North San Diego NAACP, the Long Beach NAACP, or even go to the National NAACP website. That one in LA is going to be hosted by the Hollywood Bureau. Okay. And so those are the three that we know. And there's actually going to also be one in the Oakland and San Francisco area. However, what I'd encourage people to do is go to those websites. You will be able to find information on those town halls.
Okay, naacp.org / events, I think. Okay, I want to appreciate you for coming on and all the work that you all are doing. I know that folks are working really hard, but I appreciate both the encouragement that you gave to listeners to participate if they haven't yet. And so thank you, and I will check back in with you after the election to just talk about how folks did and how they're feeling about the work that they did. I appreciate you joining, and I appreciate you all for joining and listening here on another Friday. Happy Halloween to all who are celebrating. I'm going to go hand out candy to the kids, and we will be back here next Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Enjoy your weekend.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Broward County, Florida is collecting donations for hurricane victims in majority black Jamaica and other Caribbean nations hit by Melissa.
Far worse than even what you've seen in the images. So the recovery is going to be long, it's going to be hard. We've just started.
Jamaica's Consul General Oliver Mayer says the supplies are a lifeline for those in need. The Mississippi Legislative Black Caucus is urging Governor Tate Reeves to act to prevent SNAP benefits from being cut off. In a letter, lawmakers asked him to declare a state of emergency or call a special session, but Reeves has refused. About 385,000 Mississippians rely on SNAP benefits. And the U.S. Postal Service is honoring the legend Muhammad Ali with 2 new commemorative stamps